like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, Yes, good evening and welcome to Patrick Christys Tonight. How it started for Just Stop Oil?
If you block the road and cause disruption, you could be arrested under Section 7 of the Public Order Act.
Versus how it ended for Just Stop Oil.
Now, like I said, they're being lifted and they're being shifted and they're going to stick them in the back of these police vans.
Well, Just Stop Oil just got nixed, didn't they? The police have done their job. Next stop, the pro-Palestine protest. But coming up in the clash, are teachers indoctrinating kids with radical transgender ideology?
I'll always be your friend, Thomas. Thomas the teddy took a deep breath. I need to be myself, Errol. In my heart, I've always known that I'm a girl teddy, not a boy teddy. I wish my name was Tim.
Well, this is the book that's caused all the controversy, where Teddy becomes Tilly. What's going on in your kids' schools? And, of course, we've got the inside track on whether or not Meghan Markle and Prince Harry will spend Christmas with the royals at Sandringham. And it's a winning panel tonight, ready to get lively on the sofa. We have got controversial Carol Malone, we've got belligerent Benjamin Butterworth, and we've got the beautiful Belinda DeLucy. Good stuff. All right, so it's Patrick Christys Tonight, and it's very much live. Well, get in touch now, gbviews@gbnews.com. Would you pull your child out of primary school if they were taught about being born into the wrong body? Go to Twitter @GBNews. We've got a stellar lineup, but it's really all about you. So talk to me. I will see you after the headlines.
Very good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB Newsroom. Rishi Sunak argued against a second lockdown during the pandemic, and both he and Boris Johnson were in favour of letting coronavirus spread, even though people would die. Diary entries from the former Chief Scientific Officer Sir Patrick Vallance, revealed at the COVID inquiry, noted how Boris Johnson wanted to let the disease rip, while his most senior advisor, Dominic Cummings, suggested Mr Sunak, then Chancellor, thought it was OK to let people die. Downing Street says the Prime Minister will set out his own position when he gives evidence to the inquiry. In further revelations, Sir Patrick described Boris Johnson as weak and indecisive and clearly bamboozled by scientific detail.
Certainly when I left a meeting, I would usually be persuaded that we had got him to understand what it was we were trying to say. But as one of the extracts showed that you put up there, that 6 hours later he might not have remembered what was in that presentation.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister's promised tax cuts to boost economic growth and reward hard work ahead of Wednesday's autumn statement. Rishi Sunak says the government can move into the next phase of fixing the economy now inflation's been halved, but says any tax cuts will be made carefully and sustainably.
We will do this in a serious, responsible way, based on fiscal rules to deliver sound money and alongside the independent forecasts of the Office of Budget Responsibility. And we can't do everything all at once. It will take discipline, and we need to prioritise. But over time, we can and we will cut taxes.
4 men have been convicted of murdering a woman who was shot with a machine gun in Liverpool. Ashley Dale died after being found with gunshot wounds in her garden in August last year. The 28-year-old was killed when James Witham forced his way into her home and opened fire. Sean Zeiss, Niall Barry and Joseph Pearce were also found guilty of her murder. The Israeli city of Tel Aviv has come under a huge Hamas rocket attack. More than 100 separate alerts sounded across the city, stretching as far south as Ashdod. A number of the rockets fired from Gaza evaded Israel's Iron Dome missile defence system, although no injuries have been reported. Israeli airstrikes are continuing in Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry said one such attack on a hospital has killed at least 12 Palestinians. Former Manchester City defender Benjamin Mendy's launched a multi-million-pound claim against the club over unpaid wages. The 29-year-old who left City over the summer alleges he wasn't paid after being charged with rape and sexual assault in 2021. The France international was subsequently cleared of all charges. In August, the High Court heard Mendy was selling his house in a bid to avoid bankruptcy as he battles against an £800,000 tax bill from HMRC. This is GB News. We are live on DAB, TV and TuneIn Radio too. Now it's over to Patrick.
Welcome along. Now, today, Just Stop Oil just got nicked. The Met Police, after months and months of behaving like statues, actually did their job. And every moment was caught on camera by GB News for your viewing pleasure. Around 50 of the presumably jobless yobs advertised that they were going to start 7 consecutive days of climate action, starting in Trafalgar Square. They were geared up, they were ready to go, and then this happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you can keep your protest on the pavement, you're more than welcome to carry in your protest. If you block the road and cause disruption, you could be arrested under Section 7 of the Public Order Act.
Well, like orange lemmings, they ignored the warning and then wallop. They only made it 50 yards down the road before they regretted having ever stepped foot off the pavement.
Officers, 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 start arresting, please.
As you can see from some of these pictures, as promised, the arrests came thick and fast, didn't they? Within minutes, the protest was over and the marches piled into the back of police vans. Now, it's good to see the police stepping in and actually doing their job, because until now, it's fallen on members of the public, like a pair of scaffolders, actually, to step in and make their own minds felt. Look at them there, just doing their bit, they would say. Other people, of course, would say that was violence and we can't condone any of that behaviour. But the fact appears to be that the police feel more comfortable arresting white middle-class crusties than people calling for jihad on the streets recently. But there's something interesting starting to happen with Just Stop Oil. They are hopping on any political issue that will mobilise the hard left of this country. So on Saturday, Just Stop Oil staged a sit-in at London's Waterloo station. But they weren't protesting really about climate change. They were suddenly part of the pro-Palestine throng calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Just listen to this woman who was posted by the group on social media.
I will not be complicit with a genocidal government. Thousands of children are getting murdered. What are you doing? Why aren't you here sitting down at a station? It's easier than standing up and going on a march with 1 million people. Do something.
But their wide-ranging activism doesn't end there, because remember, just last month when a rabble of the high-vis hypocrites tried to block a bus taking migrants to the Bibby Stockholm barge. Fortunately, the driver was having absolutely none of it. Didn't stop. Didn't even blink, actually, that guy. There we go. So, the police won in the Battle of Waterloo on Saturday. They won the Battle of Trafalgar today. But the way things are going, Just Stop Oil, aggressively pro-Palestine, LGBTQ plus whatever else there is, refugees welcome, they're all morphing into the same thing, aren't they? A load of people used to just be left-wing because they cared about the working class. Now, you also have to think a woman can have a penis, we should have open borders, and we need to live in a solar-powered commune. I'm asking, has the left lost the plot? But let's get the thoughts of my wonderful panel. We've got Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, we've got journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit Party MEP... Oh, you're not happy about that, Benjamin. Maybe I've lost the plot. Former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. Carol, I'll start with you on this. I mean, it is starting to look a little bit like the left might have lost the plot, no?
It's interesting, you know, that they've jumped onto the Just Stop Oil prices. There was a peer-reviewed study last year at the University of Bern, which was talking about activism and what it's driven by. And it was saying that they're all narcissists. They're people who... and that woman there that was shouting is exactly the example of what this study was talking about. They're people who want to say to all of us, they're promoting themselves, they're taking they're showing themselves to have a moral superiority to the rest of us and saying, why aren't you there? Because they're morally superior to us. And I just think it's interesting that they've jumped on. It doesn't matter what cause. They're just narcissists who are intent on causing mayhem both for this government and for everyone. So it doesn't matter what cause. It's like rent a cause. We'll go anywhere to anything. And it's just interesting. This study says that it's, you know, they need to promote themselves in a positive light. They tend to be very kind of people who aren't happy with their own lives, and so they try to make themselves look better and feel morally superior by joining these. And they're looking down on the rest of us and saying, because you're not in this march, because you're not supporting this cause. Now, but that woman seems to completely... Everyone on those marches seems to have completely forgot what precipitated them, which is the October the 7th attack by Hamas in Israel. So never mind those kids who were murdered there and the kids who were raped there, but, you know...
Yeah, but look, Benjamin, you know, many people seriously decided that they were going to be of the left because they had a certain economic view of the world and they wanted to fight maybe for working class rights. And now I think you do have to also sign up to things like, you know, being pro-Palestine or thinking that there's LGBTQ plus rights and that the kids should be taught about goodness knows what in school. All of this stuff that shouldn't really have anything to do with it.
Well, I think caring about minority issues is a characteristic of the left, and I think that's something that I'm proud of as someone who's on the centre-left. But look, I think these people... The problem is, first of all, they're not the Labour left, right? These are much further than that, so they're not people that I encounter. The fact is that, you know, the idea that they think blocking a train station when they're Just Stop Oil is going to be an effective way to bring people on their side, I don't think it's going to happen because, you know, that obviously is blocking a green way to protest. And I don't agree with them on the Palestinian issue. And I think, you know, the idea that, you know, Jemima with the dreadlocks protesting at Waterloo Station is going to change the idea of the Israeli government is clearly not going to happen, let alone even if Keir Starmer changed his mind. And I'm very proud that the Labour leader has stood by Israel in this. But even if he did, the Israeli government wouldn't care. And so I think some of these people...
No, but neither would Hamas as well, crucially.
Well, precisely.
This is the thing, because the idea that a Keir Starmer or anyone standing up and going, right, OK, you know, ceasefire now, and that Hamas are going to, you know, adhere to that is absolutely bonkers.
Well, only one side has said they'll never have a ceasefire. A Hamas leader said that we hope this moves us into a state of perpetual war. So why don't they attack Hamas?
Well, there you go. And where is all the calls in Parliament for the releasing of the hostages, etc.? we are a bit later on going to be talking more about... Belinda, can I ask you, as by the way, John writes in, gbviews@gbnews.com, thank you very much. They've totally lost the plot. They're a shower of narcissists, agreeing with you there, Carol. But Belinda, can I ask you, you know, the police... Very, very quick, very efficient there, very much able to warn these people and get them lifted. Do you think they feel more comfortable arresting white middle-class people than other demographics?
Well, I think there's a belief now that all this sort of you police by consent, it's now sort of, well, you police those who agree to the consent, you know, and you don't police those who don't agree, and that is a dangerous territory. I long for the days of Swampy. Do you remember the 1990s eco-warrior who just hung out in the trees? That's how you did it. And he's now distancing himself from these eco-extremists. And yes, the police have done a wonderful job right now, but they should have done it right at the beginning, lift them up, chuck chuck them in the van. This is a whole socialist agenda behind BLM, behind all these other Extinction Rebellion, all these other kind of left-wing protests. They all want to unravel Western civilization. They're anti-capitalist, anti-Western. It's a running theme through them all, and they're alienating huge amounts of their supporters.
But is that not it, though, Benjamin? I'll come back to you in a second, Carol, but is that not exactly the point, which is that when you just scratch the surface on this lot, they do want to just shatter everything that we hold dear, don't they?
Well, no, I think climate change is going to shatter everything that we hold dear, and the fact that they've got so much media attention and so much public support on the issue of climate change, I think is something that Just Stop Oil should be immensely proud of. But the problem is, if they copy and paste that onto other topics, then I think they lose some credibility.
I mean, you know, when we talk about Just Stop Oil now, we don't talk about climate change anymore. We talk about what idiots they are, and this just shows me. It just shows that all these protests are to satisfy their own egos. It's not about the cause itself. It's about satisfying their egos. And you can see it with them all. They all have a look on their faces. They look slightly deranged.
And what I hate about them as well is they're encouraging young people, before they even get a chance to have a career, to get a criminal record. They're shredding the nerves of our young. One of the masterminds behind Just Stop Oil, I think his name's Roger Hallam, he talks such nonsense about 6 billion dying in the near decades, cannibalism happening, terrifying things. I mean, our young are really suffering because of these extremists.
He does quite a bit, especially, I think, as well, I think I'm right in saying this, with the Extinction Rebellion as well.
Yes.
And he has come out with some incredibly fruity things that if you take that at genuine face value, talking about them breaking into your... People will break into your homes, people will rape your mothers and all of this stuff, and you think, goodness gracious me, but people do take that at face value, and we now have a generation of some of the Just Stop Oil activists who are saying, I won't have kids for the future of our planet. Part of me does wonder when you see some of them whether or not that's entirely but then you think, well, is this really where we're at the moment? I mean, Ben, does it ever make you ashamed to be left-wing?
No, because, you know, the vast majority of people who'd vote for the Labour Party, let alone in the Labour Party, are far more reasonable than that. And I think standing up for LGBT rights should not be conflated with being dragged through Waterloo Station. I think the former is perfectly reasonable. But these people aren't using democratic means. You know,
that's what's going to be happening with all these demos. No one's going to know which one is for what. The cause itself doesn't matter anymore. It's them drawing attention to themselves. The cause is
the placard socialist worker can be found in almost any single one of those protests.
Yes. Yeah,
it's the same. It's a running theme through all of them, and it's because they can't get elected, so they try and they're professional disruptors, trying to cause pain and suffering to the public.
Sounds like the Brexit Party.
Genuinely, I feel really sorry for the people who go to any one of these individual demonstrations that we see and just care about that cause and actually are just quite, you know, mild-mannered, normal people who want to raise some of the very pertinent issues that are there. And then before you know it, you stood next to some nutter saying they fully support Hamas, or you've got someone there, you know, going floppy in front of the police, and and you just think, whoa, or someone smashing up a bank. Well, I wouldn't want to be associated with these people. But anyway, we reached out to Just Stop Oil for comment, but received no reply. However, one of their activists, Pippa Cowton, said, it's always something like Pippa, isn't it? The government cannot arrest its way out of the situation we are in, just like we cannot vote our way out. I am taking action because I cannot sit back and be complicit in the government's plans to let millions die so they can further line their pockets. We have come together to resist because together we can be the opposition the country needs and we can win. So apparently, Just Stop Oil have 6 more days of gathering in Trafalgar Square, taking 1 foot off the pavement and then being nicked. So, great, all right, crack on. Still to come, though. As insiders claim that Harry and Meghan would accept an invitation to spend Christmas this year with the rest of the royal family, does this mark a turning point for the Sussexes' relationship with the King? Editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, joins me to spill all the latest royal scoops. But next, in the clash, as transgender teddy bears have actually caused so much controversy, I've still got the book here, actually. Here we go. Let's have a little look at it. There we go. Yeah, there we are. Indoctrinating Kids, it's called. Oh, no, it's not. It's Introducing Teddy. Introducing Teddy. Anyway, so are impressionable school kids actually seriously being indoctrinated? Would you pull your kids out of primary school if you found out that they were being taught that they might have been born into the wrong body? The Family Education Trust Lucy Marsh goes head-to-head with campaigner and activist Peter Tatchell. Prepare for fireworks. Don't move.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new
It's
teeth.
your new
I
teeth.
know.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Coming up, editor-at-large at the Mail, Charlotte Griffiths, on the shocking prospect of Harry and Meghan actually being invited to Sandringham for Christmas this year. But now it's time for the clash. So, will this book about a transgender teddy bear be in your kid's stocking this Christmas? No, didn't think so. But a primary school teacher in Hertfordshire has been lambasted after using the controversial picture book to teach kids as young as 10 about gender ideology. That's right, the book, Introducing Tilly, is sparking fury among campaigners who fear that the story is being used to indoctrinate young people by making them think about whether they are actually born into the wrong body, and then glorifying it with a story of unbridled happiness. Just take a little look at this and a listen.
I'll always be your friend, Thomas. Thomas the teddy took a deep breath. I need to be myself, Errol. In my heart, I've always known that I'm a girl teddy, not a boy teddy. I wish my name was Tilly, not Thomas.
Good for you, Tilly. Wear whatever makes you happy, said Ava. I'll think I'll get rid of my bow. I like my hair free. Yeah, it goes on like this. They played together all morning. See you at our tea party next. Yes, see you there. I'm bringing a friend, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, basically, what this book shows is, well, essentially a very glorified version of what it might be like for a child to just change gender like that. The charity No Outsiders have arranged for schools to read this to youngsters, with campaigners concerned about children's welfare by being exposed to what is, let's be honest, an incredibly complicated issue. Teacher Andrew Moffat said, as a teacher, we've got to find ways to prepare children for life in modern Britain, where they are going to meet people who are Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, or have no faith, or have different families, sexualities. Fine. But what do you think? Should we be teaching primary school children what we can, well, that we can be, any gender that we want to be? Or is this indoctrination? Let me know your thoughts now. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. They have been flying in so far. I'll go to those. There's some corkers in there. You can, of course, tweet us as well, @GBNews. And while you're there, go and take part in our poll. I'll bring you the results shortly. But to debate this now, I'm joined by Lucy Marsh from the Family Education Trust and human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. Thank you very, very much for joining me. Lucy, I'll start with you. Do you think that, you know, teddy bears like this are indoctrinating children?
Well, not teddy bears in particular. This book certainly is. It's just being used as a vehicle to indoctrinate children about the false concept that you can be born in the wrong body. And this has no place in schools. Primary schools should not be used as vehicles to indoctrinate young children. It's not appropriate. It's a contested ideology that has no basis in scientific fact, and it shouldn't be in schools.
Peter, Teddy has a new name. Let me introduce you to Tilly. What a great name. Let's go and play Tilly. So Teddy it's not a complicated concept to grasp, this book, by the way. It is a very, very unhappy teddy bear. Something's really bugging him. It's all miserable and dark in Teddyland. And then Teddy decides to tell his friend that actually Teddy is now Tilly, moves his bow tie up to the top of his head, presumably to symbolise that he's now a girl, changes his name to Tilly, and life becomes absolutely flipping brilliant. That's not really true, is it, Peter?
Well, I can assure you this book is not about indoctrinating or propagandizing children at all. It's about encouraging understanding, tolerance, acceptance and respect. It's designed to tackle the bullying of trans kids in our schools, which no parent, I think, would approve of. We don't want any child, trans or otherwise, to be bullied or teased or to feel unsafe or unincluded. So this book is just simply, it's about love, kindness and friendship. It's about accepting people who are different from yourself. And the basic principle applies across the board, you know, accept people of different faiths or races, accept people of different cultural backgrounds. It's a story of tolerance, not of indoctrination.
Go on, Lucy, come back to that, and then do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. Why do anti-bullying policies have to focus on one particular group? If you're teaching children not to bully people, you should be teaching them not to bully anyone. They don't have to focus on one particular group. And actually comparing transgender ideology to different faiths is also, well, I suppose in a way it could be seen as a religion, because there is no basis to say that there's such a thing as a trans child. It's actually harmful to say that children are transgender. And we certainly don't believe that this is something that exists.
OK, now, Peter, it's not really just this book, though, is it? I know that's what we're centring our discussion on today, but it's not really just this book, because parents are also very concerned about very young children being taught about quite graphic sexual things like anal sex and orgasms. And do kids really need to be taught about that in school?
I don't think you'll find that any young children are being taught about those issues.
But
I think what may happen is that older children, 16 and plus, may have those issues raised.
Can I just ask then on that? Do you seriously think that when parents are quoted in the media as saying this is what my child is being taught at school and they're horrified about that, do you think they're lying?
Well, there may be one or two examples, but it's not representative of what's happening in the vast majority of schools. And certainly all the teachers I know say very clearly that for young children, particularly primary school children, there is nothing being taught about sex. It's all about love, different families and relationships. It's about letting young kids know that, you know, some people will have two parents, a mum and a dad. Some will live in an extended family with perhaps grandparents or cousins or aunts, and some will live in same-sex families. That's not about sex. It's just about the reality of modern British family life.
Lucy, in your work at the Family Education Trust, have you come across anything that refutes what Peter says there?
There's so much evidence. There's reams of evidence that there's inappropriate relationship and sex education in schools at all levels, primary schools and secondary schools. So much of this is taught to children under the age of legal consent. It is inappropriate. Teachers are not therapists, they're not doctors. The teachers should not be teaching children about explicit sex acts and about sexual pleasure. It is inappropriate in schools, and it shouldn't be happening. Parents don't want it. The majority of parents don't want it, and parents are the primary educators of their children. It's not up to teachers, and it shouldn't be up to the state to decide who teaches children about explicit sex acts. It's just not unnecessary in schools, and it's harmful.
Peter, some people are very concerned. Peter, some people are very concerned, Peter, that what this means is that it opens up a door where people think that children from a very young age are able to consent about their sexual identity and their gender, and then off the back of that may indeed then be able to consent to other sexual things that as children they should not be able to do. The theory there will be that this is could be a vehicle for paedophilia. Your views?
Well, it certainly should not be such a vehicle, and paedophilia is abhorrent. But I can assure you that the purpose of relationship and sex education in schools is to protect young people against abusive relationships, against dangerous diseases like HIV, and against just bad relationships where one person bullies and controls the other. It's all about promoting the health and welfare of young people. And we know from the surveys that most parents say they want their children to be educated about relationships and sex in schools, that they themselves don't feel able and capable of doing it. And they're very grateful that teachers do it. And the end result is that where schools do this, they have lower rates of teenage pregnancies and abortions, lower rates of HIV, and lower rates of sex abuse. So good quality sex education works. It protects young people, which is what
Lucy,
we all want.
do you think that if parents see literature like this book, Introducing Teddy, a story about being yourself, being taught to their kids, that they will be within their rights to pull their children out of school?
I think that what we actually need, we need the government to restore the right for parents to withdraw their children from relationship and sex education. At the moment, they can withdraw their child from sex education, but the problem is that they can't withdraw them from relationship education, which is where a lot of this indoctrination and sexualizing children is actually coming in. And we need to have that option back so that parents can withdraw their child from that, because parents don't want it. They don't want their young children being taught that they could be born in the wrong body, and they don't want their child being taught dangerous and harmful sex acts, so that children are just too young to actually understand the risks that are involved.
OK, look, both of you, thank you very, very much. A good clash to get us going there. That was the wonderful Lucy Marsh from the Family Education Trust, and, of course, human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. Both of you, thank you very, very much. I'm just going to go to the inbox very quickly on this. Kathleen says, yep, Patrick, they are indoctrinating young, impressionable minds. It's disgusting. GBviews at gbnews.com. Thank you very much. Everybody is getting in touch. The inbox is on fire over this. Always gets you going, this stuff. So who do you agree with, though, as it's revealed that transgender teddy bears... There we are. I don't really know what a specific transgender teddy bear looks like, but apparently that's it, so sorry if you're not, but there we go. Are being used to teach gender ideology in primary schools. And campaigners, are they right that children are actually being indoctrinated? People have been getting onto us on Twitter as well, like D, who says, anyone caught doing this should be sacked immediately. Kids don't need to know this stuff, leave them alone. Yeah, but then you see... I'm worried that they think they're doing the right thing, don't they? They think they're doing the right thing, teachers. Carrie on Twitter says, this indoctrination of our kids has happened under a Tory government. Gender is a belief and sex is a protected characteristic. But no school is teaching this truth. That's, of course, the views of our view, Carrie there. You are right, though. It has happened under a Tory government. And, you know, all too often, I think it's all very well and good for the Tories to say, oh, look, it will get much worse under Labour. Quite possibly would, wouldn't it? But it has been allowed to happen. The creep has been allowed to happen. Alex on Twitter says kids need to be taught about gender somehow, and doing it in a way that they can relate to is just good teaching. It's that age-old question, though, Alex, isn't it, of the chicken and the egg. So I cast my mind back to when I was at school, and I wonder, really, how many children that I was at school with were trapped in the closet or felt wrestling on daily with that struggle of feeling like they were genuinely born into the wrong body. And I just don't think it was anywhere near as many as are now coming out and now getting involved in those communities. Now, I just wonder what's really causing that. But your verdict is in. 89% of you agree that children are being indoctrinated. 11% say, of course, they're not. But coming up, with Tory Wets led by Damien Green claiming that leaning too far to the right is a turn-off for voters. Is the Conservative Party abandoning its roots? Former Education Minister and true blue Tory Dame Andrea Jenkins beams in to give a massive middle finger to her party's centrists. But first, with Harry and Meghan reportedly putting a royal reunion at the top of their Christmas list, and the King taking on more duties with his grandchildren, well, there is plenty of royal action for Charlotte Griffiths, editor-at-large for the Mail on Sunday, to get her teeth stuck into. That's all coming your way. Don't you dare move.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Well, welcome along. My reaction to almost 1 in 5 teachers self-censoring for fear of offending Muslim pupils. But first, in a sign that the royal rift may be thawing, a bombshell new report from The Times states that Harry and Meghan would love to spend Christmas with the rest of the royal family at Sandringham this year. However, the Sussexes are yet to be invited. Do you think they should be invited? Should there be another olive branch? Should they dare to show their faces? gbviews@gbnews.com. But I'm joined now by editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday. It's the wonderful Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, is this really a turning point, do you think, in the relationship between Harry and Meghan and the rest of the royals?
Well, not really, because they said it themselves in this statement. They haven't been invited. And actually, it was a classic Meghan and Harry sort of drip feed of information, wasn't it? Because it actually was a bit of a stab in the side, saying, by the way, we haven't been invited. So it's hardly proof to Charles that he can trust these two not to leak out negative things about the royal family.
But maybe this was a plan for them to say, oh, look, you know, we would come if you did invite us. There's still time. And maybe this is them, you know, offering the handout and saying, hey, look, we would happily dine out on some Sandringham turkey or pheasants or whatever else they have.
They deigned to show up to Sandringham this year. I mean, I get the impression they must need more material for their next documentary. But, you know, I suppose they are saying the rift is slowly healing, we would show up. But it would be fantastically complicated for Charles, because could he really have William and Harry in the same room on Christmas Day? Can he trust them not to leak things? Can everyone speak freely on Christmas Day if Harry and Meghan are there? It would be quite a complicated arrangement. So even if they might be available, as you say, in the next 6 weeks or so, quite a lot of moving parts would have to be arranged by Charles to get them safely and securely in an environment where there won't be sort of fisticuffs at dawn.
OK, couple of things at play there. First one, do you think that Harry and Meghan might turn up wearing a wire to Sandringham?
I don't think they would do that. But there was that rumour that they did turn up to a royal event wearing a wire once, wasn't there? But that was never proved. I don't think they would now. You know, the Netflix documentary's been and gone. I don't think they'd dare. I just don't think they'd dare. OK, all right. And the second part of that is that, let's say Charles wants his son there. Apparently Charles, we're going to come on and talk about this, is, you know, spending more time with the grandkids. You know, maybe he might decide, look, come on, we've got to have Harry there. Do you think it'll be William to say, no, I've had enough of that dude? I think it would be William, yeah, absolutely. And I think if Charles did want to see Harry, and he may well offer some sort of olive branch on that front, he won't be doing it on Christmas Day, at least not unless it's sort of Carol Middleton's turn to host and William's not going to be there. I honestly don't think I can see William and Harry in the same room. I think William will put his foot down and say, you know, you can see Harry on Boxing Day, but you're not seeing him on Christmas Day, not if you want me there as well. And he is the future king, so he kind of is, and this is the whole problem, he will get the first invite over Harry.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he should as well. So he should. You know, you can't go around behaving like that, especially towards your own family, especially when that family happens to be the royal family, and expect for everything to be fine. But look, King Charles is reportedly spending more time than ever before at Windsor Castle in order to be closer to his grandchildren after the Prince and Princess of Wales moved their family to the Windsor estate last year. I think this is lovely, it's wholesome, it's nice. The royal family has often at times copped a fair bit of criticism for, you know, being part of, as I think, by the way, is not uncommon in aristocratic circles, where, you know, the family is not necessarily always as close as it is, you know, round at Doreen and Dave's at number 42. But is it a sign of how much the king is relishing his duties at grandfather? And also, look, you know, does this shine another spotlight on maybe the disservice that Harry is doing to his own kids here by denying them this opportunity?
Yeah, OK, so to answer that question, I think so, because I think it's quite obvious from pictures that we've seen of Charles with his grandchildren over the years that he's incredibly fond of them, and he's actually a real softie and a proper soft grandpa at heart. So I think if only he could get more access to those grandchildren of his on the other side of the Atlantic, it would be a lovely thing to see. And I did feel for them when they sort of recorded that video for his 75th birthday, and I thought, God, you know, they hardly know him. They've recorded a video to say happy birthday, Grandpa, but they can't actually see him. And the other thing is that William has spoken before about how it was quite difficult to get access to Charles. So when Charles was about 70, William said, you know, it's actually, we'd like him to see more of the grandchildren, but it's quite hard to get hold of him because he's such a workaholic. And I think actually, ironically, even though he's king and his workload has never been higher, I think he's getting to see a little bit more of them, and he really wants to see a bit more of them, and he really wants to nurture George as the future king. And also, they're now all sort of gravitating around Windsor, so that, you know, the Cambridges, as they were known then, used to always be at Amner, and Charles was always at Highgrove, but now they're all gravitating around Windsor where the kids are at school. So there's actually more opportunity for him to see them, and it's clear, and always has been clear, that Charles actually really does want to see his grandchildren. And I think he even built a playground for George when he was born at Highgrove, which is really sweet.
Oh, that is really sweet. And so you think that there might be a bit of tutoring going on from Charles, you know, via William down to George, which would make sense, actually, really, wouldn't it? And it would be a very, very nice thing to do, to kind of show him the royal ropes and to have that influence in his life.
Definitely, it would have been bred into Charles by the Queen that absolutely take a very strong interest in George's life, just as the Queen took a real interest in William's life. And, you know, therein lies the problem with William and Harry, is that there is the heir is always going to get a lot of focus and a lot of nurturing. I hope that Louis never has this problem with his brother, but he's going to get undoubtedly more attention from Charles than anything, because Charles has to make sure he is the future of the monarchy one day in many, many decades' time.
Yeah, I mean, Louis already looks absolutely wild, doesn't he? And I love to see it. I'm completely and utterly here for it. But Charlotte, thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure to have you on. Hope to see you again very soon. There's Charlotte Griffiths there, editor-at-large of The Mail on Sunday. Now, coming up, this is an interesting story, this, because it's emerged that almost 1 in 5 teachers are self-censoring in lessons for fear of offending Muslim pupils. Are British schools fueling de facto blasphemy laws? But not just that, are our police caving in as well? Not just that, are our politicians caving in? I will get stuck into that just after 10, but next, the Tories are at war. The party centrists, led by Damien Green, says they need to abandon the right to appeal to voters. But do the Conservatives actually need a bit more Braverman and a bit less Cameron? Former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins is having absolutely none of it from the West. She's live, sticking a big middle finger up to some of her colleagues, and that's next.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the Conservative Party risks falling into an unrecoverable position. Sounds uncomfortable, doesn't it? With voters if it allows itself to be captured by the right. All right, so that's according to moderate Tories. Well, it's a clear dig, isn't it? The former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, the so-called One Nation group of Conservative MPs, said it was time for the Prime Minister to move on from the unhelpful statements some of our party have used? Well, the group made the intervention as it launched 3 policy requests for Jeremy Hunt's autumn statement on Wednesday. Damien Green, the former de facto Deputy Prime Minister who leads the group, told Times Radio on Sunday that although the party should have a range of views, it should never be captured by one wing of it. Well, this has prompted a massive backlash from certain people within the Conservative Party for saying, hang on a minute, despite talking tough on a whole range of issues, the Tory party has actually adopted one nationism at every single turn. When have they actually really adopted properly and been successful in adopting a quote-unquote proper right-wing policy? Maybe they should just own it and stop blaming people on the right and trying to use them as some kind of battering ram to blame all of the problems with. But Tory culture warrior and former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkyns joins me now. Andrea, now what's going on here, really? I mean, people like you are essentially now being absolutely slammed by the likes of Damien Green.
Oh, it's always happened, though, Patrick. I remember this One Nation group, which they make up the majority of the parliamentary party, but these are the ones who didn't want Brexit, who didn't want Boris, who didn't want Liz Truss. So they're not really in tune with the British public. And I recall, isn't Damien Green the one who got deselected by his own association back in February as well?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying that we can't lean too far to the right. I mean, do you think the Tory party has leant too far to the right?
I don't think we're going far enough, to be honest, Patrick. And also, I mean, if you look at the group as well, I think, look, they've never accepted Liz and never accepted Boris. And it's about time that we started having policies that was in our manifesto and what speak to people. And if you look at 2015 was when I got elected, Patrick. If you think that was Cameron, who's back in government, which, as I said on your show last week, I do like Cameron, but not for this time and place. But back in 2015, we actually only won 6 seats off the Labour Party. And with this all one nation type of conservatism. And to me, it's actually belongs in the Lib Dems, some of these policies. So it was in 2019 we won all these seats off Labour. So we need to go more centre-right. It's obvious if we want to keep these seats. And let's face it, this is what we got elected on.
Yeah, I just actually genuinely just don't quite understand what he's talking about, because if I just row back, we've had, you know, the fundamental loss of all of our liberties during the coronavirus pandemic. We've had, you know, record levels of immigration, both legal and illegal. We've had a story that I'm going to talk about very, very soon, actually, is the genuine fear of offending certain elements of the British Muslim community, to the extent where we now have kind of pseudo-blasphemy rules in schools, etc. And the big green stuff as well. I mean, this to me looks almost like Damien Green has got exactly what he wants from the Conservative Party, and he's still whinging about it.
Completely. Well, I mean, they clearly want to obliterate the centre-right out of the party. That's why they got rid of the previous 2 leaders. But you're right. I mean, I want to stop net zero. I want strong borders. I want the strong policing where in the 80s we used to drag protesters off the street. So, you know, we want strong policies. And, you know, Damien Green, as I said, I'm sure he got deselected himself, but you can see this happening with other MPs, or them not actually winning their seat if we carry on down this road of Lib Demism rather than true conservatism in my books.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is all wrapped up in things like tax cuts as well. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt due to unveil his awesome statement on Wednesday. You know, we used to have people who pull rabbits out of the hat. I just can't help but wonder whether or not Jeremy's rabbit is completely dead and just rotting, and it's got myxomatosis, and it's just going to be absolutely nothing, really, isn't it?
Talking to a vegetarian here, Patrick.
Well, I know that Priti Patel is very strong on all of this as well. She's saying, look, come on, it's time to behave like a Conservative. I mean, what would you say to people in your party who say, look, you are a fringe radical that has captured this party and you're dragging us into the doldrums?
I say sod off to the Lib Dems. we want our party back. We want Thatcherism to be at the heart of our party. We want low taxes, as I said, strong on immigration, to controlling immigration, strong on policing, and let's kickstart the economy again. And it should be about social mobility as well, Patrick.
About social mobility. Just a quick one while I've got you, because I just want to tee up a little topic that I'm doing a bit later on. I think it's quite important, really. So we have a new study that's come out that appears to show that almost 1 in 5 teachers are self-censoring because they're afraid of offending elements of the British Muslim community. It comes hot off the Batley Grammar School incident, a couple of other issues as well. There was another school where a child brought in a copy of the Quran and scuffed it, and then before you know it, his mum's down the local mosque begging for forgiveness alongside the police chief and alongside...
Both of these are my 2 neighbouring seats, actually, Patrick.
Which is why it's perfect timing to get you on, of course. Do you think that we are too afraid of offending certain elements, do you think, of the British Muslim community?
100%. I mean, when the Batley school teacher, I mean, it was ridiculous that he was having death threats and he still hasn't gone back to school, and he was hiding because, you know, he's offended certain, you know, people in our community. It goes against free speech as well. And surely the whole point is that we should be able to debate topics. And when actually the school teacher, when he... his previous MP, Tracy Brabin, at the time, I remember, you know, having to go at her on social media saying, when are you going to stand up for that poor school teacher? I think it's a sad state of affairs, actually, when our school teachers fear being able to speak out as well.
But you know what happens? I mean, we saw it, didn't we? Rachel Reeves, again, I'm coming on to this in the next hour, but Rachel Reeves having an absolute shocker on the beep, saying, you know, oh, look, they're not hate marches. Suella Braverman was absolutely wrong to call them hate marches. But what we started to see is some people marching with a lot of hate in their hearts towards Labour MPs' offices, and that's crossed a line now. It's starting to look a little bit like maybe
you saw it on the street as well, didn't you, last week as well,
yeah,
Patrick?
I felt it. Oh, it was terrible. I really felt it. But it's almost look a little bit like they only really care when it starts to affect them, whereas we've just been living in this mess for ages and been told to shut up.
Completely. and this is what I don't like, the double standards. And just as Suella said about double standards in policing, it should be across the board. If somebody's committing a crime, and if you remember, all the leftists keep saying about these hate crimes, well, we've been seeing hate crimes the last week, Patrick. We need to see more arrests.
Absolutely. Andrea, look, thank you very much. Great stuff. Great to have you on the show. It's Andrea Jenkins there. Dame Andrea Jenkins. Sorry, apologise, I demoted her. Right. Look, I've got a couple of emails I want to get to here. gbviews@gbnews.com. Thank you very much. A lot coming in about Harry. Will he be invited to Christmas at Sandringham? Second child syndrome, says Jason. Spoilt wee boy needs to grow up. Meghan has led him down the wrong path again. A bit mean, though, you never know, but maybe he will get an invite. But coming up, after another weekend of criticism, should there be an independent review into the BBC's Israel-Hamas coverage? Former head of religion at the Beeb, Akhil Ahmed, and Keith Fraser, who's chair of the Israel Solidarity Movement, they're going to battle it out a little bit later on tonight. Important issue, that. Very important issue, I think, especially after we were told that it was completely normal that there might be Kalashnikovs and explosives and all of that stuff in a hospital. I mean, are the Beeb just lying to us about this? But coming up, with that teacher in Batley remaining in hiding 2 years after showing a Charlie Hebdo image of the Prophet Muhammad to a bunch of kids, is it right that we are too afraid of certain elements of the British Muslim community? See you in a tick.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new
It's
teeth.
your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is Patrick Christys Tonight, and 2 years after these scenes in Batley, where a teacher was hounded out of his job by locals, are our teachers, our politicians and our police too afraid of offending certain elements of the Muslim community? Are we hurtling towards the day where Islamic law becomes British law? I speak to a lawyer who represented those offended in the deeply controversial Batley Grammar School Prophet Muhammad incident, and the BBC is imploding.
Wherever you go in the Middle East, you see an awful lot of Kalashnikovs. And it's not inconceivable that, I don't know, perhaps the security department of a hospital might have them, certainly the police do.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, completely normal. Kalashnikovs at a hospital, absolutely fine. Bit of C4 over there as well. Has that man got a suicide vest on? It's just A&E, isn't it? But the clash sees a prominent member of the Jewish community come to blows with an ex-BBC employee over calls for the Beeb to be investigated. But don't you dare think about going to bed, because at 10:30, I've got all of tomorrow's front pages for you and the top stories from inside the books as well. Fleet Street's most notorious editor, Kelvin Mackenzie, tucks in to the most entertaining paper review you will get anywhere on national telly, and that's a promise. And ready to get busy on the sofa is my panel, Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. That's absolutely fantastic stuff. It's Patrick Christys Tonight, and it's live. Well, it's about to pop off here, and I want you to be a part of it. GBviews at gbnews.com. Are we being intimidated by radical Islamists? That's the question. Go to Twitter as well, at GBnews. I will see you after your headlines.
Very good evening. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Rishi Sunak argued against a second lockdown during the pandemic, and both he and Boris Johnson were in favour of letting coronavirus spread, even though people would die. Diary entries from the former Chief Scientific Officer, Sir Patrick Vallance, revealed at the COVID inquiry, noted how Boris Johnson wanted to let the disease rip, while his most senior advisor, Dominic Cummings, suggested Mr Sunak, then Chancellor, thought it was OK to let people die. Downing Street says the Prime Minister will set out his position when he gives evidence to the inquiry. In further revelation, Sir Patrick described Boris Johnson as weak and indecisive and clearly bamboozled by scientific detail.
Certainly when I left a meeting, I would usually be persuaded that we had got him to understand what it was we were trying to say. But as one of the extracts showed that you put up there, that 6 hours later he might not have remembered what was in that presentation.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister's promised to cut taxes to boost economic growth and reward hard work ahead of Wednesday's autumn statement. Rishi Sunak says the government can move into the next phase of fixing the economy now inflation's been halved, but says any tax cuts will be made carefully and sustainably.
We will do this in a serious, responsible way, based on fiscal rules to deliver sound money and alongside the independent forecasts of the Office of Budget Responsibility. And we can't do everything all at once. It will take discipline, and we need to prioritise. But over time, we can and we will cut taxes.
4 men have been convicted of murdering a woman who was shot with a machine gun in Liverpool. Ashley Dale died after being found with a gunshot wound in her garden in August last year. The 28-year-old was killed when James Witham forced his way into her home and opened fire. Sean Zeiss, Niall Barry and Joseph Pearce were also found guilty of her murder. The United States has condemned the seizure of a cargo ship in the Red Sea by Yemen's Houthi rebels and have demanded its return. The group, which claimed the ship is linked to Israel, released footage which appears to show armed men boarding and seizing the vessel. However, Israel says the ship is British-owned and Japanese-operated, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claiming the seizure was an act of Iranian terrorism. Meanwhile, the Israeli city of Tel Aviv has come under a huge Hamas rocket attack. More than 100 separate alerts sounded across the city, stretching as far south as Ashdod. A number of the rockets fired from Gaza evaded Israel's missile defence system. Although no injuries have been reported, Israel airstrikes are continuing in Gaza, though the Hamas-run health ministry said one such attack on a hospital killed at least 12 Palestinians. Former Manchester City defender Benjamin Mendy's launched a multi-million-pound claim against the club over unpaid wages. The 29-year-old, who left City over the summer, alleges he wasn't paid after being charged with rape and sexual assault in 2021. The France international was cleared of all charges. In August, the High Court heard Mendy was selling his house in a bid to avoid bankruptcy as he battles against an £800,000 tax bill from HMRC. That is all we have time for the moment. I'll be back with more a bit later. Now it's over to Patrick.
Teachers are reportedly living in fear of accidentally offending elements of the Muslim community. Not just teachers, I think it's some of the police and politicians as well. I want to say right at the outset that I don't think that any religion should be able to dictate policy or have any undue influence in society. But we have to be real about what's potentially going on here. We saw the Batley Grammar School incident, didn't we? Where a teacher showed a picture of the Prophet Muhammad to some kids and then had to go into hiding, still lives under a new identity and isn't teaching. What happened was people mobbed up, turned up at the school gates, called for his blood, he feared for his life and he lost his job. His entire personal and professional life was shattered. Now, new data from YouGov and the Policy Exchange shows over half of teachers polled said they would never use an image of the Islamic prophet in class. 16% of them admitted to having self-censored in order to avoid causing religious offence. Half of teachers said there would be a risk to their safety if protests similar to the ones which sprang up outside the school gates in Batley occurred. And 1 in 5 said there would be a very big risk. Then, of course, there was the incident of an autistic 14-year-old boy who brought in a copy of the Quran to school. It got scuffed and he was suspended alongside 4 other pupils. The police were brought in and it was treated as a hate incident. The head teacher, the local police and the boy's terrified mother had to attend the local mosque and beg for forgiveness. Here's a little clip of the woman in a room full of Muslim men pleading with them because her teenage child was receiving death threats and there were threats to burn their family's home down.
Thank you so much for letting me come here today to speak to you. I know that what my son has done is disrespectful. He didn't have any malicious intent, but he's a very, very silly 14-year-old boy who does have some challenges. He does suffer with high-functioning autism. It means that socially he doesn't always realise what is appropriate and what's not appropriate.
Causing offence to elements of the British Muslim community in schools clearly comes with catastrophic consequences, and people live in fear of that. Is that OK? What about our police force? Here's how they handle Just Stop Oil today.
You're more than welcome to carry in your protest. If you block the road and cause disruption, you could be arrested under Section 7 of the Public Order Act.
But if you're at the pro-Palestine protest, there appears to be very little chance of you getting lifted. In fact, they just want the public to dob you in. Is fear of offending a religious group dictating policing on our streets? And now let's have a little look at our politicians, shall we? Are they being influenced by fear of offending a certain community too? Rachel Reeves had an absolute shocker on the BBC at the weekend.
I support the right to protest. Suella Braverman's comments about these being hate marches, etc., are appalling. But I don't support the intimidation of members of Parliament. And I think that's what you're seeing with some of these protests now, outside of people's offices and outside of people's homes. And MPs have got a difficult job to do, all public servants do. And this sort of intimidation and taking protests to people's homes, I think that goes beyond the line.
So to summarise, the hate marches aren't hate marches, but please can people marching in a hateful manner towards MPs' offices stop, because that's too hateful. Labour MPs in seats with a huge Muslim population felt compelled to go against their party's policy. Some of them, no doubt, will have just wanted to anyway, but as did a Tory MP as well, Paul Brister. Now, if they didn't do that, then people turned up at constituency offices and shouted at them, like those furious scenes that I witnessed outside Labour MP Rushanara Ali's constituency office in Bethnal Green last week. Is that not intimidation? Now, no one religion should be able to dictate how our society functions. But as British society changes and the demographics shift, how long is it before British politics, especially British foreign policy, is dictated to by the desires of the British Muslim community? I suspect it might not be that long. Now, some people may say, well, that's just democracy, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with that. And that's fine. I get that. But I would politely ask you to play the tape forward and think about what that really looks like in practice. Now, before I go to my panel on this, I'm very pleased to say I am joined by the lawyer who acted for some Muslim parents at the time of the Batley Grammar School incident. It's Eunice Luna. Eunice, thank you very much. It's great to have you on the show. So, look, do you not think it's a national disgrace that that teacher is still in hiding?
Evening, Patrick. Hear me?
Evening,
Can I just... Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Yes.
I did message you today. I've invited myself onto your programme because you had an uncomfortable experience when you attended Parliament with the Palestinian demonstrators. And I hope you'll accept my invitation. I'm happy to discuss your concerns and how you were so intimidated. And I've seen your clip. And do accept my invitation and get me on your programme, please.
Well,
when I asked to
I'll tell you, I mean, look, if you want, we can just talk about it right now, actually. It's not originally what we had you on for, but we might as well. You've raised it, so go on.
Yeah, I've seen the clip, and I can clearly see you're very, very intimidated simply because people do not want to speak to GB News. Now, what I wanted to say to you is, do you think I would have had a chance of doing what you did on last Saturday at the Cenotaph? What would have happened to me or somebody of my ethnicity would have gone to the Cenotaph to have a civil conversation with those people that were supposedly standing up for the British democracy?
I don't quite get what your point is there. Are you trying to say that maybe if you'd have walked through a crowd of people who were around the Cenotaph that you would have faced something like what I faced at two pro-Palestine?
Nobody laid a finger on you, but I don't think I'd have come out unscathed as you did. All people did was ignore you All people listen.
So, hang on a minute.
I'm happy to go
Can
through
I just say?
All people did.
That's categorically untrue, though, isn't it? All people did was ignore me.
Say,
I had a security guard with me on Wednesday.
Yes.
I had a security guard with me on Wednesday. Okay.
Did anybody lay a finger on you?
Sorry?
Anybody lay a finger on you?
Actually, they did.
Anybody threaten you?
Yes, actually they did, and you can see that in the clip. I'm absolutely amazed that you come on. That clip has been seen, one of those clips has been seen almost 500,000 times. Another one of those clips has been seen another almost 500,000 times, actually. And I think you're probably the only person ever. So can we flip this on its head? Do you condone the way that those people behaved to him? Because I'll tell you why they didn't want me to talk to them, why they didn't want me to ask basic questions, because it quite clearly would have unearthed the rampant hate and anti-Semitism that is coursing through our society at the moment. And for you to claim that you'd have got a similar reaction to what I did by going and standing with a group of veterans around the cenotaph on Armistice Day is willfully ignorant.
Let me speak to you about hate, right? We have had hate matches.
Do you condone the way that people behaved to me? Go on.
Are you going to speak?
No, I'm asking you a question. Do you condone the way that people behave towards me?
Well, I have seen the clip, and I haven't seen anybody raise their voice at you. I haven't seen anybody swear at you.
Are you insane? You haven't seen anybody raise... One of the clips, Eunice, a bloke has got a megaphone shouting in my face.
The clip I have seen, I'm referring to the clip I have seen. You are referring to a different clip.
So what about the ones where I'm called fascist scum and a bloke swearing at me and banging a thing in my head? I really...
I don't.
So you've just not seen them, because those are the two clips.
What I'm saying to you, Patrick, what I'm saying to you is, had I done what you did last Saturday at 11 a.m. at the cenotaph, I don't think I'd have been standing. That's all I'm saying to you.
You know, the fact is that you're absolutely wrong about that. You're absolutely wrong about that, because they absolutely would not have behaved that way to begin with. There is absolutely no way that people would have behaved to you.
We suddenly find our moral compass. We suddenly find our moral compass when you have 100,000 people week on week, week in, week out, marching for peace. Yet when we've had...
But they're not marching for peace, though, are they? This is the thing. I mean, do those two things there, in any way, shape or form...
I didn't interrupt you.
Look like peaceful marches to you. But you're coming on and you're lying, right? This is the thing. So you're coming on national television now and you're lying. We're playing clips over the top of you talking now that prove you're lying, right? So you can see your own lies now on national television. So you must acknowledge that, right?
If you want a civil discussion, I'm happy to have a civil discussion with you. If you want to talk over me, then please be my guest.
So do you accept that you're lying?
We've had race matches before. We've never, as a society, we've never ever had a debate like we're having now, when the right-wingers come and march in our community with the intent of hatred, but we've never talked about passing legislation, right? You tell me, when have we had a march of 100,000 people in this country and not one person has been intoxicated? What? The people that were marching last Saturday, I'm on record as saying...
Oh, my gosh, you're just so wrong about this. I mean, I really don't understand where you're coming from with this. I mean, I went to that march on Wednesday, you could smell cannabis. You could literally smell cannabis. And the bloke, for what it's worth, the bloke who was actually doing a lot of the shouting at me and banging, you could smell the booze on his breath from a mile off. So you're completely wrong about that again. Eunice, I'm absolutely done with having a completely bonkers conversation with you, where you're way off the mark about the marches. We've played clips. I'll get you on now to talk about what we originally had you on to talk about.
I was just going to say that. Let's do that another time. All I asked you was, will you accept my invitation? That's what I asked you. Accept my invitation.
Yeah, and I did. And you're wrong.
Let's talk about what you've got me for.
So, invitation accepted and batted away. Let's have a chat about whether or not you think it's still right that a teacher at Batley Grammar School, who was at Batley Grammar School, should have to go into hiding, into police protection, his whole family, and lose his job over what he did. Do you think that there are concerns there?
All right, OK. That's not the premise of what I was invited for, but I'm happy to respond to that.
What were you invited on for? It's literally exactly what you're invited. You seem to be having a bit of an issue with the facts here.
Well, if you don't talk over me, then you'll understand where I'm coming from. I was sent an article in the Daily Telegraph about what is taught in schools, what is taught in religious education. That's what I was invited to speak about. I wasn't told that. I wasn't told I was going to be asked about the Batley grammar school teacher. But I'm on record. I've been on your program before, and I'm on record of saying that teacher should never have been suspended in the first place. I'm on record as saying, scrutinise who made the decision to suspend that teacher. As an employment lawyer, I would not have advised that teacher to have been suspended. That's my position. You know, I've been on your program, I've said that before. That teacher should not have been suspended. That teacher should have been reinstated. And I'm on record of saying the people that I spoke to, the people that I represented in the community of Batley, wanted that teacher to be back in the job. They wanted to sit down and discuss the situation with that teacher and resolve it.
But given that there were death threats, do you think that really that is something that the teacher actually felt comfortable doing? Is that not part of the problem? Do you not think? And that's why I'm asking whether or not you think that teachers and maybe other people in society as well feel as though they have to succumb or bow down to this for fear of causing offence.
The threats came from the way the whole situation was reported in the media, and it was out of control. But I come back to what I've said. I do not believe that he should have been suspended.
Right. Okay.
I come back to that. You know, I'm on record of saying that.
All right. So it wasn't. So the media whipped up a storm that led to somebody getting threatened with death, and not people turning up at the school gates and actually.
What the media did. If you recall what I said at the time to you, what the media did was conflate what happened here with what happened in Paris. That is a totally different situation, totally different demographics, totally different mechanics.
Okay, Eunice, we're gonna have to park it there. It's Eunice Lunat there, who was the lawyer for people at the time. Look, to respond to this now, I'm joined by Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. I've got journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. I've got former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy as well. Well, for obvious reasons, that overran slightly, but I will go to you, Carol, and go to the matter in hand initially, which is, do you think that we are too much at risk of offending certain aspects of the British Muslim community when it comes to teachers?
When you listen to this gentleman here, you understand why we are where we are. He wasn't listening to a word you were saying. He wasn't interested in what you had to say about what happened to you. He was only interested in what he believed. He hadn't even seen the clips. That I find astonishing. So ask me a question again.
Do you think that we're too at risk in society of offending certain groups of people?
Yes. I wonder every day why the whole of the Western media and all the political and the arts establishments have decided between them that there is one particular religion in this country that we cannot insult or offend, and that is Islam. And that is a decision that has actually reverberated everywhere. The Batley thing that he didn't really want to talk about, I blame the teachers in that school, I blame the cops, I blame the people in the community. The minute a teacher's life is threatened, that the people making the threat should be arrested and jailed. Simple as that, and they weren't.
One thing, though, Benjamin, that some people might say is, look, right, if there's an opportunity to avoid causing offence, then you should take that opportunity. Yes. And therefore, there's a fine line to have between maybe caving into someone's sensibilities and actually just being polite.
Well, yeah, like, should you choose to burn the Quran in front of a mosque? No. Should you do that in a school? No. That would be seeking to inflame things. But that isn't what happened in these examples, and there are so many examples where things like the existence of gay people being taught in schools, things which are the law of the land and have been for about 10, 15 years in this country, and they think that the Muslim community, the self-appointed leaders of that community, who of course don't represent all Muslims, believe that they can behave in a way that intimidates them. And I care a great deal about prejudice, and it cuts lots of different ways. And there is a problem in this country, and among left-wing people, of which I am one, there is a problem on the left that we seem to think that this prejudice is too awkward to confront. The fact is, the Muslim community in this country clearly has a problem with anti-Semitism. We've seen it in the last month, and it is considerably more homophobic than the rest of the country at large. And we should not be afraid to point that out. Because I tell you what, the people who are most damaged by that are gay Muslim kids growing up in places like Batley who are having their ability to lead their lives be denied.
Well, it's definitely, you know, certain elements of it, isn't it? And that's an issue that is rearing its head. I, again, you know, will be at pains to say I feel very sorry for genuinely just moderate, normal individuals, you know, and people might point out and go, well, there's hardcore elements of the Christian community, there's hardcore elements of the Jewish community.
There are. Orthodox Jews have very similar conclusions and behaviours. But the difference is that we confront those
Christians do not issue death threats when their religion is
No. We have an issue with Islamist intimidation mobs in this country. Fact, we even saw it with the Cineworld having to cancel their Lady of Heaven film because of mob intimidation. And they even said they feared for the public safety of those who went to see the film, so they cancelled it. This is because of institutional cowardice in our authorities, with our politicians. They have no backbone to challenge radical Islamism and do a huge disservice to the Muslim community, who are the biggest victim group around the world, by the way, of radical Islamism and their punishment and their hateful ideology. Look at the Iranian women. You know, it's not fair the way the left completely conflate radical Islamism with Muslims all the time so that you can't ever criticise it. I'm a Christian, but I'm secure in my faith, so if someone wants to insult or mock my religion, I don't feel any hate or vengeance towards them. That is wicked. That is wicked what is going on. I am so upset with what's happening in England that our government have allowed to take root, and now they're too scared of even challenging it because they have no backbone in this country.
We were told after Rotherham, this was never... Rotherham happened where 1,400 girls were abused by mainly Pakistani Muslim men. And we were told this wouldn't happen again, but this happened because the cops were too scared to challenge Islam.
All right, all of you, thank you very, very much. An extended version of the top of the show there. But coming up, I'll bring you the most entertaining and informative press preview anywhere in the country, as me and tonight's Press Pack analyse all of tomorrow's biggest headlines. But first, should there be an independent review into the BBC's Israel-Hamas coverage? Former head of religion at BBC, Akil Ahmed, and Keith Fraser, chair of the Israel Solidarity Movement, they battle it out. That's next.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Now, the BBC is facing calls for an independent review into their coverage of the Israel-Hamas war, led by their own former head of television. After a litany of on-air cock-ups called their infamous impartiality into question, Danny Cohen, director of the BBC television, between 2013 and 2015, has joined a growing chorus of voices unhappy with the Beeb's recent coverage of the conflict, which has forced awkward apologies like these.
And now an apology from the BBC. BBC News, as it covered initial reports that Israeli forces has entered Gaza's main hospital. We said that medical teams and Arab speakers were being targeted. This was incorrect and misquoted a Reuters report. We should have said IDF forces included medical teams and Arabic speakers for this operation. So we apologise for this error, which fell below our usual editorial standards.
OK, well, that apology was made on the 15th of November, but just 2 days later, BBC international editor Jeremy Bowen was back at it.
Wherever you go in the Middle East, you see an awful lot of Kalashnikovs. And it's not inconceivable that, I don't know, perhaps the security department of the hospital might have them, certainly the police do. And so the Israelis may get the proof that they want. They've found this tunnel entrance, but so far that they haven't.
Right, so after repeated controversies in recent weeks, should there be an independent review into the BBC's Israel-Hamas coverage? Going head-to-head in a special edition of The Clash, I'm delighted to welcome former head of religion at the BBC, Akhil Ahmed, and up against the founder and chair of the Israel Solidarity Group, Keith Fraser. Chaps, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Look, Keith, do you think that the Beeb should face an investigation?
Well, look, if you go back to 2004, you'll know about the Balin report, which was actually an investigation written by Malcolm Balin, who was a BBC journalist. And he studied hundreds of hours of footage, BBC footage, which covered the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And of course, years later, the contents of that report have never been shown. They have spent hundreds of thousands of taxpayers' money to circumnavigate the Freedom of Information Act, because they know they don't want to show what's in that report. Because I've got to tell you, I don't call it the British Broadcasting Corporation. I call it the Biased Broadcasting Corporation. You know, I know some journalists, I know personally, that in order to get, they actually do documentaries, but to get content commissioned by the BBC, it needs to be balanced against Israel.
OK, all right. Well, so I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you on that, Keith. All right, some quite strong stuff there. So, you know, Akhil, I'll give you the chance to come back on this. Do you think that the BBC should face an investigation?
Well, obviously, I'm speaking in a purely personal capacity here. I think all broadcasters, all news organisations need to have an investigation at the end of this, because I think there's a bigger question here. I mean, I know Danny really well. I used to work with Danny, but he has never worked in news, you know. And actually, when you're on the ground, I worked in news for many years. You know, when you're on the ground, you know, things go wrong. And I'm going to tell you now, this particular conflict, there's no getting around it. Not just the BBC, lots of broadcasters have made lots of mistakes, because I think we're actually into a different kind of technological situation here now, with social media and disinformation and deep fakes and all sorts of things are going on. And basic errors will always get made, particularly when you don't have complete access to locations at all times. It's an absolute mess. So I don't think the BBC needs to be just investigated. I think we need to investigate how this has been covered by absolutely everybody, because everybody is making mistakes. And what it's showing us is, in a social media age, that some of the old rules of reporting and some of the ways that we've all worked, all of us, you know, GB News included, they're very, very different now when you think about the world that we're in now. And I think it's really hard to kind of like say the BBC have been bad or Channel 4 has been bad or CNN has been bad. Everybody is making mistakes.
I think there's almost two aspects of this for me, which is the reporting of events on the ground, and that is, I think, very, very difficult and can be victim to mistakes, right? Just mistakes for whatever reason. But there's the thing that I find quite unforgivable, I think, is very often the reporting of the things that are happening over here, actually. And I think especially the BBC might have questions to answer there. I don't know what you feel about that, Keith.
Listen, I completely disagree with what your guest just said. I know for a fact, because I know people who work on the ground in the Middle East, that the BBC is getting its data from Hamas. Now, I know that the BBC doesn't call Hamas a terrorist organisation, but let's be clear. On October the 7th, they raped women, they burnt elderly children, they even killed people's pet dog. They even took babies out of the womb of a pregnant mother. And these are the people that the BBC are getting their facts from. This is not the British Broadcasting Corporation. This is the Biased Broadcasting Corporation. And I tell you what else, Patrick, I'm not going to be spending a penny next year on renewing my BBC license, because I see it as a form of execution. Because groups like the BBC, news outlets like the BBC, they are responsible for spewing the hatred that is making people turn on my community, i.e. the rise in anti-Semitism because of the reporting, and I blame the BBC as a big part of that.
All right, Akhil, obviously quite a lot to come back to there, Akhil, so I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah,
Go on.
I mean, look, if we're going to have a sensible conversation, I think that's really ridiculous, right? I've got to be honest with you. The fact of the matter is, you can argue that there's coverage is not great for absolutely everybody. Nobody's happy at the moment, whichever side you're on. And I'm not taking any sides in any of this kind of thing. I'm saying no one's happy. Now, with regards to where you get your information from, I don't know. I mean, to say things like it's a fact that they're getting their things from Hamas, every single broadcaster on the ground, and right now, my Israeli friend has been working flat out since October the 8th with Channel 4 News, with CNN, with the Times newspapers, etc. They're all getting the same information from the same sources, because that's how it works on the ground. The BBC is not different from anybody else. Everybody is getting it from, whether it's from the UN, from the IDF, from people in Gaza, whether it's Hamas or whatever. You're getting lots of information from lots of different people. Every single person is doing that, because that's how journalism works when you're on the ground. And that's why I say there will be mistakes, because everybody is manipulating it, because that's what you do when you're trying to get your message across. The question is, how manipulated have the press been? And I think we probably all know is, of course, they've been manipulated, because some of the people doing this on all sides are very sophisticated.
All right, look, both of you, I would really like to invite you back on, and I no doubt we will get the chance to going forward as well, and we'll have a bit of a longer conversation. But I think I was really fascinating stuff on both sides there. That was, of course, a former head of religion at the BBC, Akhil Ahmed, and that was the chair as well of the Israel Solidarity Group, Keith Fraser. Very strong stuff on both sides. A BBC spokesperson has previously said, our starting point is always impartiality. We take that incredibly seriously. That's why we take so much effort to get our coverage of significant and complex world events right. In amongst thousands of hours of news broadcasting, there will always be some errors. There you go. There have been some whoppers, though, haven't there? And I can really sense the strength of feeling there, certainly from the British-Jewish, British-Israeli community. But coming up, Fleet Street legend Calvin McKenzie swings by the studio to offer his unique insight into tomorrow's biggest stories. But first, tonight's three-man press pack have the first of tomorrow's front pages hot off the press. And there's some big news in there. I'll see you very soon. You won't want to miss it.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Let's bring you tomorrow's news tonight now with the most entertaining paper review you will get anywhere on telly. The very first front pages have just been hand-delivered for my press pack. So, we've got the Metro. Sunak's cutting it fine. PM hints at lower taxes. As election looms, he tells voters it's finally time to lower the burden. We're going to the Independent now. Big picture story of Nigel Farage eating something that probably either came out of an animal or was attached to an animal. Apparently people saw his arse tonight, and that's something that now we all have to live with. Boris Johnson, though, let COVID rip through the UK. Rishi just let people die. This is what they're saying is a COVID inquiry bombshell. These are the astonishing words of Johnson and Sunak. We're going to come back to that. I'll whiz you over to the front page of the Daily Telegraph now. Sunak pins hopes on Thatcher tax package. There's a, completely uninspiring picture of him and Jeremy Hunt both wearing cagoules doing some drilling. Science given undue weight over economy and COVID, says Valance. A mystery of what causes red wine headaches solved by scientists. Can I just save them a lot of time and say it's too much red wine? We're going to go over to the Eye now. Sunak's Eat Out to Help Out drove second wave of COVID. So Rishi's copying it there. Farage has it easy in the jungle. The joke's on us again, says the Eye. More on that. The Guardian, the UN sounds the alarm as the world on track for hellish 3-degree, I think that should be, rise in temperatures. And talking about Argentina's new president as well. We're just going to whiz you over to the Mirror. Yep, Sunak, let people die. There's quite a lot of this. Farage is a big jungle turn-off, they say as well. Well, we'll see about that. And the Daily Mail, return of tax-cutting Tories. And the PM says it's time to reward hard work. Right, panel, thank you very much for joining me again. I'm going to start with the Independent. There is a giant picture of Nigel Farage eating what I think might be a cow's teat. on the front there, and then pulling a face. What do you make of the fact that Nigel's doing all of these challenges? Really, I mean,
I want to know. I'm kind of sorry I'm here tonight, as much as I love you, because I want to see why everyone else saw his backside tonight. I need to know that.
Yeah.
I think it's the pressing issue of the day.
Yeah.
Far more important.
The calibre
than tax
of
cuts.
Nigel Farage's arse, Ben.
Well, yes, was I?
Well, I suspect it makes more sense than what comes out of his face.
He's been sitting on that for a while, hasn't he? Like Nigel, there we go. Belinda, you know, look, Nigel Farage going to eat his weight in things like camel's anus over the next 3 weeks, isn't he? How do you feel about that?
Look, he is a man of duty and honour, and he's also a man of no surrender. I think he's going to be eating absolutely everything they give him and with no problem at all.
I just hope he doesn't scream at anything, because then he's finished.
Yeah.
If he screams at all.
But do you know what? George Galloway went in Big Brother far more controversially, and he got elected to Parliament.
Oh, hello.
Twice.
George Galloway never got over the shame of
Would you like to be the cat?
No, that's disgusting. I mean, he never got over there.
Well, look, you did Celebrity Big Brother and survived, so I'm sure there's hope for Nigel.
Look, the actual news, the actual news on the front of the Independent is Boris let COVID rip through the UK. Rishi just let people die. It's the words coming out now of, you know, the WhatsApps and the emails, etc. The people who were in charge during the pandemic. Does this shock you, or are you over it?
I don't actually believe it, because Sir Patrick Vallance, one of the scientists, was saying this, and he said he never actually heard it. And guess where it came from? It came from Dominic Cummings, who hates Johnson so much she wants to see the man completely and utterly destroyed. I don't believe it for a second. And do you know what? Those scientists, Vallance and Whitty, would have had us locked down to this day if they had their way. Their policy was zero COVID, which was a stupid policy. So I mean, I don't want to hear what someone like Patrick Vallance has to say.
There's quite a bit. Yeah, go on.
Can I also just say as well, Vallance is trying to make out that Boris was some bumbling fool and didn't understand the statistics. I'd like to see Boris in a competition of intellect with Patrick Vallance any day. Boris is not a fool. Remember, he had just had COVID. He nearly died. He was affected in many ways by it. And to suggest that he was a fool is just stupid.
Benjamin, do you think there's a few different papers today with a variation of Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson being happy with people dying? I mean, do you think that's a bit unfair or not?
Well, I think it shows that we've been ruled by politicians that couldn't care less about the people they're ruling over.
Oh,
the
nonsense,
idea
Ben.
that they looked at pensioners and thought, well, you may as well let them die because it's less inconvenience than us doing our job properly.
Wait, who said
I think is abhorrent.
I thought you wanted to deport old people
that?
instead of channel migrants, but you're coming out to bat for the pensioners now, are you?
I don't think they should be killed by a useless government.
And
this is what Rishi and Boris were thinking.
No, they weren't. This is what Dominic Cummings says.
Belinda.
Okay. The average age of death from COVID was 83, and it was a horrific death, I'm sure, for many, and my heart goes out to everyone. But to shut down a country in the humane way the scientists did, especially over things like funerals, and there was something really inhumane about the scientists, and I'm actually glad that there was a little bit of pragmatism.
We haven't got time, sorry. But can I just stick with you very quickly, because you hardly heard from you there. On the front of the Telegraph, Sunak pins hopes on Thatcher tax package. PM's aiming to revitalise Premiership, series of tax cuts in the run-up to the next election. Too little, too late?
Yeah, and just regurgitating vague promises, and no one's really impressed. No bright ideas. We needed an aggressive growth package, and I just think it's disappointment after disappointment with Rishi. And of course he should cut taxes, but I blame the Tories for wasting so much money that our taxes had to be put up in the first place.
A lot of waste, and not least a massive wasted majority as well. I mean, that was.
I think the idea that cutting inheritance tax is their big sell. You know, your nan will have to die for you to get anything out of this Tory government. It's not a great slogan.
Carol, quickly on the answer.
I just think they should be doing it now, not in the spring, which is when it's too late, because it looks like a bribe to the electorate for the election.
All right, we're off to a flyer with the old press pack. Thank you very much. Coming up, will the royal family be within their rights to not invite Harry and Meghan to Christmas at Sandringham? We're obviously going to debate as well that as I crown tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass. But first, Fleet Street legend, former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie. He's live in the studio. More of tomorrow's top stories. And Lord Cameron has weighed in on the government's Rwanda plan. Find out why when I see you in 2. Don't miss it.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like? I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GBNews.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's get stuck into more of tomorrow's front pages. Is Fleet Street legend and former editor of The Sun. It's Kelvin Mackenzie. Kelvin, thank you very, very much. Shall we start with The Sun? I think we should.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Enough place to start. Putin has tried to kill me 5 times. It's a world exclusive with Zelensky opening up to The Sun reporter. There's also a little bit there. Looks nasty, Nigel, as Nigel eats what I can only imagine is a piece of goat appendage or something. I mean, your take on that front page as we see.
Well, it surprises me that it's only 5 times, frankly. I mean, Putin is a natural-born killer, and he crosses the world to kill people who have done very little to him. Zelensky has made him look a bloody idiot, right? Meant that he can't leave his own country, right? He can't leave Russia for fear of being killed. He couldn't even go down to South Africa, right? He thought he'd be killed there. He would get killed anywhere, Putin. So Zelensky is a hero beyond heroes. He is fighting every day for what we believe in, right? By the way, that the Labour politicians of Batley don't believe in. By the way, that was a good piece, that. A guy I know really well is a friend of that Batley teacher. That guy's life has been destroyed, and not one Labour politician in a socialist area said one thing in his favour. And by the way, neither did any Conservative cabinet minister. What an opportunity for a Conservative to say, we will support that. We are not going to allow that kind of thing to go on. Why do they never, ever. What is wrong with our country? Ever. Well, what is the fear? What is the fear?
It's the fear of ending up like that Batley teacher. It's the fear of ending up being attacked on the street.
You can't be. If we had the governments, whether they're socialist or conservative, basically saying, you can't do that, we're not going to allow it, come on. Yeah. If nobody speaks for them, how many other teachers? There was a piece today. 1 in 5 teachers are scared, right, of saying anything.
All right, no, well, I'm just going to get you on another story, because we've done a fair bit of that now. Lord Cameron, your favourite, is threatening to get tough on European human rights judges if they try to thwart the UK government's Rwanda plan. The Foreign Secretary moved to reassure anxious Tory MPs, and stress the importance of pushing ahead with Rishi Sunak's new plan. He's going to get tough on foreign judges, is Dave?
No, he couldn't get tough on anything. He was hopeless. Right. He said to the nation, well, back me, I'm the tremendous David Cameron, or we're going out of Europe. What was that? Sunderland has done what? Oh, my God. Oh, I'm out of a job. Right, he threw his hand in straight away. He is absolutely the kind of liberal, conservative politician that your viewers and most of the country no longer believe. Nobody believes that Rishi is going to cut taxes. Nobody believes he's going to get tough with the judges. Nobody believes this government because they never, ever follow through. So, look, I want Sunak to cut my taxes. I want him to cut NI. I want him to cut inheritance tax. I want him to cut as many taxes as he likes. But we can't do it carefully, Rishi. There's no way that we can do it carefully. The guy has lost it. He's lost the umbilical cord to I think, ordinary thinking people. Well, something wrong with him.
Well, there we go. Kelvin, I mean, it's incredibly strong stuff. Short but sweet, but much appreciated nonetheless. I will be seeing you very, very soon. It's Kelvin Mackenzie there. Right, OK, it is time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. OK, Carol, I will start with you for our Greatest Britain. I believe that we can just rattle through that in just a second now. Carol, go on.
Matt's royal family for telling Harry and Meghan they will not be welcome at Sandringham this Christmas. The brass neck of the couple, apparently they've been love-bombing the royal family to get an invite. Why? Because their currency stateside has gone down the toilet and they're not earning as much money as they want to be. That's what it's all about.
Benjamin?
My Greatest Britons are Tom Harwood and Emily Carver, who launched Good Afternoon Britain today. Emily was my co-star on the Saturday 5, so she's left us for weekdays, and I'm sure they're going to do a great job.
OK, all right. Belinda?
My Greatest Britons, it's the Met Police for doing their job. Yes, brilliantly today they swiftly removed the Just Stop Oil nuisance protesters in the Van Sun. Off they want. Great stellar job. More of that, please, Met Police. Well done.
Right, well, I know which side my bread's buttered. So I'm obviously going to say today's Greatest Britain is Tom Harwood and Emily Carver. Yes, there we go. Fantastic. Just like to stress that when I said I know which side my bread's buttered, I was very much talking about Emily there. Tom has never and will never get a look in. Right, OK, Carol, very quickly, is he Union Jackass?
Right, is the BBC's Africa editor Mary Harper. She was told by a judge that she's the one who tried to keep the Somalian gang rapist in this country. Him and 3 of his mates raped a 16-year-old girl, put in prison here. People on a plane stopped him being deported. He's now there. However, shocking. The BBC, yet again, another mark of shame for them. This woman tried to stop him getting deported, saying he would be hurt if he went back to his own country. Well, the woman he raped might think that was a good thing.
Grief. Yeah, strong. All right, Benjamin.
Mine, reluctantly, is Sadiq Khan and also the Green Party councillor Nate Higgins. These people stopped a £2 billion sphere, like the Las Vegas sphere, being built in London. They blocked it today, and I think that's a tragedy for our investment and cultural scene in London.
I actually completely agree. Belinda?
Labour MP Rachel Reeves for saying at the weekend that it's only now these pro-Palestinian protests have crossed the line because they're targeting and intimidating Labour MPs in their offices. Not before, not on the 8th of October onwards, when they were making no-go areas for Jews and filled with anti-Semitism and radical Islam.
Rachel Reeves is today's Union Jackass. Look, thank you very much. It's been an incredibly lively show. Wonderful panel. Well done, you. And thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening. I'll see you tomorrow at 9.
Hello again. A window of fine weather to come over the next 24 hours. That is once any further showers have eased overnight. A lot of cloud continuing at first, but then Clearing skies are arriving from the north and northwest as a ridge of high pressure builds in from the northwest. But still, we've got low pressure close by. That's continuing to bring some cloud and some rain or showers, especially across eastern parts of the country. Eastern Scotland seeing those showers push into eastern England overnight. A lot of low cloud associated with these showers as well. Some showers continuing across north and west Wales, parts of southwest England as well, but these will ease. So for many, it's turning drier and clearer overnight. Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing a frost by dawn with -2 to -4 Celsius in some sheltered spots. But that's where we'll have the brightest of the skies first thing. Scotland and Northern Ireland, plenty of fine weather through the morning. Elsewhere, a lot of cloud, especially East Anglia and the southeast, where there'll be some mist and fog first thing with some showery rain continuing into the afternoon. 12 Celsius here, but crisp autumn sunshine elsewhere, 8 to 10 degrees generally. However, for parts of Scotland, it turns cloudier later, and that's ahead of some wet and windy weather sweeping in for Wednesday. That rain affecting predominantly Scotland, but there'll be some dribs and drabs of rain for Northern Ireland, Northern England as well. Further south, a largely dry day on Wednesday with increasingly cloudy and breezy weather later. Rain sinking south on Thursday, followed by colder conditions by Friday.